Then, as you get yourself up from the floor, you finally take in your surroundings. You're a little woozy at first, but then it hits you that you just died. You were run straight through the heart by Teresa on what seems to be some sort of plan. And you decided to trust her words, feeling the cold steel enter your body before the life left you. And now that you had this short, monologue with Idiok previously, learning a bit more about your situation, you finally take in your surroundings. You're in the middle of what seems to be a large reception hall. All around you, you see various paintings of different settings and people, some potted plants, doors, and twisting white corridors. Ahead of you, there's what looks to be the beginning of a flight of stairs, but after the first step, there's just a large chasm of swirling colors and shapes. Images and scenes of what looks to be little snippets of time and history, seemingly without any intent or order. The Landfall Festival in Berkel, the establishment of libraries in Civitas Florum. You notice your master in a couple of them, but it all moves too quickly for you to really pay much attention to it. You imagine this to be Idiok's way of keeping visitors entertained. Why can I hear myself?
I have my thing as far away from where the ears are as possible.
So fair enough then. Hello?
I said I don't.
Okay. You look up. You look up at a bit of an angle, and about 800 feet above this shifting scene is where the top of the stairs looks to be. What do you do?
I assume I'd have to go up the stairs.
As you start moving towards the stairs, after a moment, you hear the light flutter of wings, and you spot two tiny celestials approach you, a male and a female. They look quite similar to the one you saw with Kefka, yet they have their own personal features. This female also has red hair, as well. The two of them beckon you to follow and fly over the chasm.
I'm gonna attempt to follow.
You walk onto the first step, and a shimmering, translucent glow forms over the chasm. You see the two celestials hang over a bit in front of you, looking back, waiting at you expectantly.
Okay. I'm still gonna attempt.
You take another step into what looks to be nothingness, and you find solid footing. Take a few more steps. Other than a slight shimmering glow, you don't appear to be standing on anything, but you feel solid ground underneath your feet. As you walk up the ethereal stairs, you begin to see doors and corridors just floating all around you. More shifting rooms and office-like spaces filled with various people hard at work doing various things. After getting about halfway through, the two celestial cherubs wordlessly get beside you and gently grasp around your shoulders. And then, with almost alarming ease, the two tiny celestials lift you up and take to the air, carrying you the rest of the way. And as you're deposited on top of the stairs, you now see another set of hallways form in front of you, with statues and more pictures by the walls. The two cherubs then go off a little ahead to guide you. They lead you through a few more hallways filled with similar decorations before you see, just ahead, a series of doors around you, but all of them have what looks to be a sigil placed around them. You can roll Arcana if you'd like to figure out what it is. The only exception is this large door in the center just a bit ahead of you.
Right, it's 11. And I'm assuming I don't have the ring anymore.
You
No.
do not. It did not come with you when you died.
Well, at 24. You can easily tell this is some form of abjuration magic, designed to keep doors shut and protected against entry. You imagine these doors are warded both against forceful and discreet attempts to break in. And as you make your way over to the one door that doesn't seem to be magically shut, you see above the door is a plate that reads, Lord Idiok Prepavatai, God of Commerce and Trade, take action in transaction. It's not the best slogan, but you imagine it will do for the Owlish Contractor. As soon as you get to the door and move to open it, it opens for you, and you feel a cold wind blow against you. You find yourself having to squint your eyes for a second, as you're immediately met with a scene of white snow as far as your eyes can see. Please move over to the Idiok's office map.
Holy shit, you actually found that a GIF for that scene. There, vibes. Holy hell, this looks weird. Map. A little too far. There we go.
Can
Okay,
to move this in
over it.
the view. There you are. In the distance, you see a forest of tall trees that seems to stretch far up above beyond the white skies. So far, you can't even see their tops, embroidered by ranks of branches and leaves all around. As you take in the scene, you begin to feel a bit less cold, and the icy wind stills. You then notice, just in front of you, there's a desk and a giant, vacant office chair facing you. And just a bit behind it, you see this long stretch of metallic-looking floor. You can feel, just by looking at it, that it exudes a sense of magic of some sort, though you can't immediately tell what. Do you do anything?
I'm gonna try to figure out what this magic is. Before I approach the thing.
Alright. A little bit another Arcana check, in which case.
Okay.
27, like you handle this one, bud.
What?
Are you up,
I'm
Gabe?
fucking with map shit.
Oh, you're fine with that shit. Codex wanted to try and see if we can figure out the strange metallic floor. Well, 27. Arcana.
Hey, you wrote that part, not me. I don't even know where it is. I'm like scrolling through this shit.
Well, the thing is, I'm gonna say, you get.
Well, we'll have to hold on to that for now. Hold on. So looking at the floor, like out in front of you, and then you look at the podium and you're like, wait a minute.
This looks very
That
familiar.
looks oddly suspicious. Because that reminds you of the Chronicle. It's not the same, but it has a similar shape and design.
Then, after a moment, you hear the sound of flapping wings from someplace over you. You turn to look, eyes squinted, and you see a massive shadow emerge from the canopy and approach. After a bit, the form begins to slowly descend, and you now recognize what this shadow is. I'll wait until they place them in.
Yeah, let me grab that. Do-do-do-do.
A massive 30-foot-tall owl with hundreds of arms of varying sizes and appearances extending from all sides of its body. Lord Idiok Prefabatai then lands on the chair in front of you, furling his wings as he fixes you with his piercing orange eyes. You find yourself a little taken aback at first by the sheer height and presence of this god. Suffice to say, Idiok Prefabatai's appearance is incredibly imposing and more than a little intimidating. You can definitely understand how easily he inspires the fear that he does in mortals. The glare of the owl then twists into a strange, beaked smile. Ah, Codex Librum. This was much faster than I expected. Come over here, why don't you?
So... Don't really see it. I can't really move the token because I don't see my token on here.
Oh, it was on the bottom.
I legitimately did not see it.
It was right in front of the orange thing at the very bottom.
Looking at the top, this thing's fucking big.
Mm-hmm. And now you see as well the token for Idiok.
Looks familiar, though I can't quite
Looking
place.
pretty nifty. Oh, and it's good to see you dead and well. Glad you could make it. In a matter of speaking, anyway. Welcome to my office. One of them.
Just anime style sweat drop after good to see you dead.
Uh-huh. I trust my cherubs are taking proper care of you. Ah, of course they have. You are here, after all. Well, the most important part of you is anyway. But that is no matter. For the soul is all that is needed for such exchanges such as this one. For you see, magical relics and the like, they attune to the mortal soul, not the mortal coil. The overwhelming majority are merely set to unattuned to a creature's soul upon the expiration of the mortal's coil. However, that is not a requirement upon the item's creation. This is a misconception that is far more common than you might think. Oh, please, excuse me for just one moment. Idiok's head turns a little and looks down to a segment of his many arms. You notice that several of his arms are there either quickly begin to perform various tasks or proceed to do the ones they already were faster. Some writing, others manipulating devices or retrieving and depositing items through the use of small portals. Now that you take a closer look, you have noticed a small handful of arms gathered together, apparently playing games like rock, paper, scissors, thumb wars, and similar hand games that appear to have failed to notice Idiok looking in the direction. After a few moments, another, much larger arm appears and proceeds to seemingly accost the group of smaller arms, almost as if chastising them to get back to work. Which is precisely what they then all proceed to do. Idiok then clears his throat before looking back to you. My apologies. You know how arms can be. Look away too long and they begin to slack off. Most unacceptable. Anyway, I imagine you have many questions. Do I suppose I should start with what is undoubtedly the most burning? Just why are you here? And why so dead? There are actually two reasons for this. Well, two main reasons, anyway. First being that you attracted attention of the wrong mortals. As I'm sure you are aware, there are radical extremist groups determined to eliminate all influence of Lady Anaclisi from the material plane. Groups that I must shamefully admit, in having taken some part in their establishment during the time, I was unaware of who the chronicler truly was. Well, as a means to better keep track of their progress, I had begun to install some of my loyal followers within their ranks here and there. So imagine my shock to learn that word of you becoming the champion of the Dream Warden had already begun to spread like wildfire. Though even more suspicious was how they even knew that you were in the process of constructing a tome of great importance to renew her influence in the material plane. Suffice to say, you immediately became public enemy number one amongst all these groups and were now on their radar.
And if had eyebrows, they'd be raised. Like, how could they have found out about any of this?
Obviously, was very clearly foul play, quite likely by one of the higher beings still in opposition to Lady Anaclisi. However, as if that in itself was not troubling issue enough, questions quickly began to be raised among these mortals as to why the Storm Herald, of all people, were accompanying Anaclisi's champion. Especially when the Storm Queen is thought to be one of her greatest oppositions. This was very quickly becoming quite problematic, considering plans are presently underway to begin dismantling these organizations. It goes without saying that we needed to distance you from the Storm Herald as quickly as possible. Well, it just so happens that one of my most trusted underlings happened to be quite close to you all, so I devised a little scheme to make it appear as if you had been killed, your notes destroyed, and your books secured and destroyed as well, and that your involvement with the newly appointed Storm Herald was merely a ploy by Madame de Urano to draw you out in the open. Because direct opposition from other higher beings is issue enough. The last thing we need is radical extremist mortals impeding you every step of the way as well. So your death has accomplished many things all at once. As there are now observers amongst us now at play to ensure that there won't be any more dirty tricks regarding the involvement of mortals not directly involved in the matter. Oh, and as far as wild theatrics and not merely consulting you about this first, there was simply no time. Multiple assassins were already en route within Berkel. Had one of them gotten to you first, none of this would be possible, as it would be direct intervention to undo their work. Though things are a little different when undoing a deed done by one's own faithful, especially those in the higher echelons of them, as there are arguments to be made that, in itself, is a direct intervention and thus should be undone anyway to begin with. So we all had to make it look as if I had directly ordered her to kill you, which I technically did. So, flag on field, harm done, total foul. Why, I dare say that I am in fact obligated to undo this direct intervention of mine.
Just a bit of an unamused look.
Drink some water, Annie.
I am. He leans back in his seat. Now, any questions of curiosity outside of those pertaining to our business here? Or should we get right down to business and address those business-related questions thereafter?
Well, it would be good to know that I'm gonna inform all I do know about this outside god that's been, including, well, bringing up the fact that in the heat of the moment might have done some mocking using the mimicry.
Yeah, so bring up Merkel and the whole circumstance.
Of essentially how he might have made him mad.
When this whole some importance that things get expedited with everything in the book, to come in this book.
My, you're a quite brave one, aren't you? I'm certain that wherever he is, he must be quite displeased. Regardless.
Oh yeah, and here's the book thing.
Okay. Worry not about such details, for I have been in contact with Lord Asilo in regards to this very matter. Your tome, that is. While the higher beings can't get away with just making copies of books appear into thin air, we can organize a network of scribes to greatly expedite the creation of copies, which is precisely what we intend to do, should you succeed in your efforts, of course. Any other questions?
At the moment, without knowing what the full brass tacks of the business,
The full what did you say?
Full brass tacks.
Okay. Okay, so that would be...
So that would be right
Yeah.
here.
Yeesh. Allow me then to
Alright,
explain the
yeah.
situation in greater detail, as it is admittedly rather complicated, as is much business of we higher beings. Some of Idiok's hands stop what they're doing, and he straightens himself. His expression is now very serious. Excuse me. A moment. As I said earlier, your escapades of most recent have not gone unnoticed. They rarely do. However, it is important for you to be aware that there are still those among both those higher beings and you mortals who fear the chronicler now more than ever, that they are aware of exactly what she is. The implications of her existence threatens her the current status quo in terms of balance and power, you see. For even the second and third mediators have long since agreed to not skip the till and merely govern. Lady Anaklisi, however, has done no such thing. In fact, quite the opposite, for she made her intentions all too clear in her song's address. That our great mothers created her with express intent of her becoming the overseer of our world, or overgod, as your Timentarian night neighbors like to call it. So that is precisely what she intends to do, as far as precisely what an overseer is. They're the greater being that governs all of the realm space housed within any given crystal sphere on the prime material plane and all of the worlds within it. And you see his face untwist into a bit of a grin. Our fine realm space consists only of the world of Diotethys. However, it is of exceptionally large size and far richer in nature's bounty in comparison to other worlds elsewhere, from what I hear through the grapevine, though that is neither here nor there. My point is, Diotethys has no overseer, no greater god that governs over us. There are a great many amongst us who believe such a thing is unnecessary, as we have managed thus far just fine without one. However, their idealism is naive, and they willingly turn a blind eye to the fact that Lady Anaklisi has effectively been acting as a quasi-overseer from behind the scenes since her creation. Because the fact of the matter is, all realm spaces need an overseer, not only to govern, but to have a being with the power necessary to protect it from extraterrestrial threats, such as those renegade higher beings in Toral's realm space who seek to bring about the untimely demise of the Silent Guide's Trinity. Speaking of the Silent Guide, seeing as you're so good at keeping secrets in your mind and impenetrable fortress with a chronicler's blessing, I'll let you in on a little secret that is of direct interest to you as champion of the chronicler. Think of it as a gesture of good faith. Ugh. No, he does not vomit. That was just my throat being weird.
No. Let me let you in on a good, on a secret. I vomit.
It's like, I was aware of the implications. Anyway. Now I can't get it out of my head. This
Carry on, dork.
This idiot being like a mother feeding her chicks. Oh, whatever.
Drink some water, dork.
That's what I plan to do.
Do it.
I am. Moving on. Idiot's large form then leans over his desk down closer to you. That girl's the most powerful of us, you know. The most powerful of us was what I meant to say. None of the other high beings appear to have noticed the silent guide's wakes of recent due to the Chronicle being such a tremendous bother to navigate. However, I like to think of it as my job to notice notable things in the Chronicle. Knowledge is power, as they say. However, far be it from me to out the Chronicler's daughter, because despite her vast and unquestionably supreme power, she remains the very embodiment of by the book, something I greatly respect. Besides, if you truly desire to establish your absolute supremacy over Diotethys, which it very well could do right now, by the way, she's done so by now. However, her love for her mother runs every bit as deep as mine for my very own, an exemplary trait that I find most commendable. I could never bring myself to harm or undermine such a sweet, respectable, and responsible girl. And Idiot's words definitely sound kind and good-natured as he speaks, but the way he says it, you can't help but feel a little uneasy. And not too amused either, judging by his previous experience. Yeah. He raises an eyebrow at you, seemingly as if noticing your unease. Oh, worry not. Her secret I shall indefinitely keep. I was much Lady Anaclisi and Lady Ordicus has given me no reason to say anything to the others. I may admittedly be quite ruthless, but I'm not heartless. I trust you shall do the same in keeping this little secret of hers, yes.
Keep it secret.
Good. I like that about you. A small part of me finds it to be a real shame that Lady Anaclisa got to you before I could see just how capable you truly are. Though I am all too aware that she's in far, far greater need of your talents than I do, so that's not to blemish your ability. Oh no, quite the opposite in fact. It's precisely because of your great ability and your devotion to the Chronicler that we higher beings who are aware of our world's need for an overseer believe you to be invaluable in our efforts to achieve this end. To think to put to pen such an extensive and thorough compendium I think it's fine, but of data on the Chronicler and all matters pertaining to her is a marvelous idea. But to go so far as to seek unanimous divine acknowledgement? Why, I must say that decision was absolutely brilliant. A couple of his arms is spread out wide, and so does his wings. And it's got quite a considerable wingspan. For a little tinge of jealousy, maybe. Continues. A true masterstroke. Such a thing will unquestionably serve to cement her into an inevitable raised overseer. It may or may not happen in your mortal coil's lifetime, but it most certainly will happen before long, relative to the mortal calendar. A few months, maybe a year or two, certainly no more than a century or two at the very most. Why, it's a solution so incredibly simple that none of us even thought to try it. I'll be the first to admit that we higher beings are not the best at simple solutions, and I humbly confess myself to be no better, if not a tad worse than most. Too much bigger picture thinking and all that. It is difficult to think outside the box when it is arduous to even see the box, let alone know what is even inside the thing, if you catch my drift. But I digress. Enoch then leans back into his chair before silently looking over you for a few seconds. An oasis of quiet is very much welcome after the vast desert of long-windedness. So the respite is short as he soon continues. What are your weaknesses? Oh, you know, I work too much, I'm too hard, I'm too perfect. Fair point. Oh, this is wrong. Okay. However, there's just one tiny little problem with this grand plan of yours. No fault of your own, mind you. The issue lies in the fact that a number of higher beings have made their intentions all too clear. That since they can no longer involve other mortals not already directly involved in this matter, they will be sending their champions to stop you once I undo my involvement in your untimely demise, regardless of the wake or subsequent punishment it will bring. Suffice it to say, it is a sacrifice they are very much willing to make. Efforts to persuade them otherwise have only resulted in rather heated arguments. Lord Stographos and the twins in particular stand strongest in their opposition to you. He then pauses for the briefest of moments, as his owlish smile then winds into a massive grin, stranger that seems. Speaking of the twins, I must say that Kefka fellow was a real hoot. While I very much cannot condone his flagrant disregard for the rules, I quite like the man as a person. He and I have had a number of pleasant chats already. Not to mention, his insight as a former mortal has been most valuable, regardless of one's opinion of the man or his simple methodology that is unquestionably effective in the right applications. We are all the better off with him. Not to mention his finding and dispatching an extraterrestrial invader on his very first day, but the mortal challengers are high beings, nothing to scoff at. Oh, and you should have seen the look in the Dome Blaster's face. Lord Ardens was ready to discipline him quite harshly for running off to manifest in the material plane after literally just being warned not to do so. Only to learn that Kefka's timely intervention resulted in both evidence to the presence of as well as the removal of said threat. Oh, and the absolute nonchalance of his delivery of this grand feat was the cherry on top. It was as if he had already done it 1,000 times. I won't be forgetting that one anytime soon, but oh, it gets better. During a particularly heated debate with the twins, he had the audacity to rather cruelly inform the twins that it is in fact quite easy to tell them apart, that the distinct lack of Foswayne's chest and the great excess of Tufa's buttocks and thighs make telling who's who a trivial task. Then the man has the gall to follow up his crass commentary with the suggestions that the goddess of harvest should perhaps lay off the harvest, and the goddess of nature, having inadequate memories that are poor examples for mothers to be, as she should look into doing something about that. I swear he had all others present almost laughed himself straight into oblivion, myself included. And when the two simultaneously blasted him across the room in response, well, he simply picks himself up, dusts himself off, and casually informs them that he likes women who aren't afraid to get rough, and they'll do just fine getting along. The looks on the twins' faces, priceless. He just explodes in a rather posh laughter for a short while before collecting himself. Like, that was a fun gif.
Fucking anime style smut drop out all of this.
Bit of oversharing, perhaps. I am quite looking forward to seeing what this so-called man of metal will make of himself in the future. Now, all jest aside, the twins and I have never gotten along all that well, but we do have a great deal of respect for each other, as our domains directly complement one another in the mortal world. So seeing as debate and discussion was clearly not going to accomplish anything, I stood to propose a wager, as we higher beings often do to settle disputes. Because since those opposed will intervene regardless of what is said or done, we might as well be civil about it. With that said, you will be escorted by an entourage of champions of some of the higher beings who are in direct support of you and your efforts. Oh, and do you know that those who support an Ecclesia's rise to oversee and know all too well that this is a rather big ask from a mortal champion or not, so you will be compensated for your efforts. As far as what that compensation is, you and I have worked that out once the terms and conditions are laid out. Speaking of, all supporting and opposing parties have agreed to conjointly sign and seal your tome together under 2 conditions. First, collect the signatures and seals of all higher beings who have chosen to remain as neutral parties or are present as merely observers. Second, bring the tome before Lord Helios and Lady Fengari to ratify the divine decree, once all aforementioned signatures and seals are required. Satisfy these 2 conditions, and all remaining higher beings will then come forth and collectively sign and seal the tome themselves. Now, as for the terms of these conditions. First, to obtain a higher being's signature and seal, you must travel to said higher being's primary church, at which time they will do so as they have unanimously agreed upon as neutral parties and observers to this wager. Second, upon officially beginning, you are to receive no aid from higher beings or the champions outside of those present in your escort, and must decline all offers of mortal aid. Third, should you be killed at any point and left as such for greater than 1 hour, the terms and conditions of this wager are null and void. Furthermore, you can no longer be brought back to the mortal realm and must subsequently remain in the great beyond for your final rest. However, do rest easy knowing that no dirty tricks such as capturing you, banishing you, or running off with your body once killed will be tolerated. Such actions result in immediate win for those in direct support of you. Oh. And while as much as I truly wish I could give the Chronicler my fullest support by directly supporting you, as you undoubtedly know, I choose to maintain neutrality in all matters of higher affairs. If I begin to make exceptions now, higher beings will call into question my future stances of maintaining neutrality, and use this example of my directly helping Lady Anaclese to forever bludgeon me with. Though I will admit, if there ever were a time to do so, this will be it. So I am to get all of my bias out of the way now before we begin. Ediok turns in his chair before his head, turns back to face you. I owe a great deal of debt to Anaclese, for this lovely little manual of the Chronicle she sought to gift me in good faith has been utterly invaluable. And when I hand it briefly as the very same manual before it disappears. It's missing the details of some of the more delicate information as to protect the actual Chronicle, no doubt. However, that is no matter. I need not know such classified details anyway, for what she has so generously given me has been incredibly useful, as I've already found practical applications of this extraordinary technology for this organizing and filing of information, as well as establishing gateways to better monitor situations in mortal realm. I cannot even begin to express the amount of time this has saved, or the degree of hassle it has spared me. While her giving it to me was merely a gesture of good faith with no strings attached, I feel that such a gift is far, far too valuable to not give, or at least do something return for it. So lending her champion some measure of aid before the wager begins is the very least I can do for her. With that said, let us get to the matter of compensation for your work. He then turns back in his chair to face you, his head never moving all the while. It's a bit unnerving, admittedly. So, is there anything you wish to perhaps request, first and foremost?
Just, I had a thought that would better the odds of this mission when brought in for that. What about under the effects of the reincarnating spell? Because they'd be looking for, well, me.
That is an excellent suggestion. I was just waiting for you to ask. For a Lore Master 7 such as yourself to appear again, particularly as a Kenku, that would be the most exceptional of exceptional things. Wandering Wind's appearance as Lore Master 7 had already turned some heads. However, having more than one Lore Master 7 alive at one time is not unprecedented, albeit only to have ever happened on a handful of occasions since our world was born. Wizards of your caliber don't exactly grow on trees, you know. Many think it to be a real shame that Wandering Wind did not further pursue his studies of the arcane beyond mastery of the fundamentals. So it would certainly be for the best that the bird was buried, at least for the duration of your quest. Do you have anything in mind? A flighty Arakokra? I know your people's thirst for disguise still stings in your chests. Or you might like to be a feisty kobold. I hear they're quite charming, though I never had the pleasure of meeting one myself. A British orc, maybe. The mortal coils are quite hardy, you know. Or perhaps even a fanciful elf of the fairer sex. I can make you into just about anything mortal that you desire to be for the duration of your quest, with the exception of the so very large or scaly beast types, of course. You might even consider this an opportunity to experiment if you so choose. Just let me know what it is you wish to become.
I'm thinking just the average looking, the standard, well, like
An excellent choice.
So that not stand out, yet long-lived enough that it would have been more than feasible that one of my knowledge would still be a feasible thing.
There's a slight smile to this owlish face again, and he nods. Blending in is exactly what you will need to stay alive, Codex Libram. Oh, and that name will no longer do. We ought to do something about that, shouldn't we? Any name that you perhaps prefer? Or should I decide? You almost feel a sense of mischief just ooze from him at that last spot.
Probably wouldn't have, as with the Kenku brain, would be able to come up with the name.
Let's try this. Roll.
You could write it out.
You can, yeah. And the problem is, it's more about the Kenku brain is bad with creative thinking.
Yeah, but if it's organizing things that you already have, so if you know an alphabet, you can make words that you already know.
Okay, but I want to say roll intelligence for this, and you have pretty high mods, so it's not like it's, unfeasible.
Yeah, right until you jinx them.
I'll give you advantage because you're you.
I had to remind myself. Oh, okay, also no fives. As funny as that would be. Well, thanks for the nat 20.
Huzzah.
You're fine. Take your inspiration.
You come up with the perfect name just off the top of your head. You love it.
Elton Nelson Highhill. Common. Pretty standard halfling names.
Elton Nelson Highhill. I do say. I rather like that name. Has a nice ring to it, you know. Anyway.
I did clarify it with the Ghostwise variety, right? Just because.
Yeah, you can say that. You can say that.
Let's clarify with the halfling variety, the Ghostwise variety, as well, the telepathic speech, wherever it is, however it be called, would be very useful in passing on information subtly. Oh.
Good idea. Now, with the bit of business taken care of, is there anything else?
But checking my pins. And that's been the... Well, let's say, what about if I were to get some scholarly robes tied to you, so that way if someone from one of these hostels worded question things, or mortals that are on the hostile factions could just claim that I'm going to do some negotiation stuff.
That could most likely be arranged. I'll see what I can do.
Excellent. Let me find that.
Okay, because I don't remember this
Un
being here.
momento.
I don't remember this being here, actually.
Yeah, I forgot to write that bit down.
Yeah, good
but I
question.
already have
Good
that.
job. So.
Un momento.
Where's that? Where's that other token? You didn't put it in here, or at least, is it in the?
Which
DM's
token?
one?
Which token are you talking about?
His other token.
Oh yeah, yeah, it is.
I can't find it.
It should be. And oh wait, no, I added it to the other map, the one for the thing, the other thing. And I pinned it, so it should be pretty easy to find.
1 second.
In the Tome of the Chronicler dungeon side. Dungeon Master side. That was a bit tiring to do, but it's fun.
Yeah, 1 second.
Yeah.
Funny suggestion, though, Fives. I wish to be a kobold called Molo.
Enoch. You know, it's like a whole bunch of his hands all raise up together. And then he glows a little faint white for a moment. And they all snap at once and poof. You feel really weird for a moment. And shorter. And you can think more clearly now. It's fucking bizarre.
I can think clearly now. The rain is gone.
Also, you notice that you are currently wearing robes that have... Let me find it. But yeah, so there's symbolism of service to the Owlish Contractor all over this robe. So, pretty clear if anybody saw you, they'd want nothing to do with you.
Now this
And
is
you
a good
get
look.
this.
Now this is a good look for you, Mr. Highhill.
See, this is rather different.
Hope you'll enjoy yourself.
This might be a big ask, but after this task, I don't suppose it would be possible to keep at least the open mind part of things.
You watch as a couple of his arms move up to his face and kind of scratch at it. A most interesting request. The curse has been long established and we Highbings have agreed to leave it be. But I suppose exceptions could possibly be made. Go ahead and roll persuasion for me if you want. With your current mods.
Well, the mod would be the same regardless, technically.
No, he actually has his new sheet.
Well, yeah, true enough. True enough. That would have happened in the same bit, I guess.
But the mod is still literally the same, but I'm gonna dump the 2 inspiration and not 20 to shit.
If there was ever a moment to use inspiration, this is probably it.
Idiok appears to think it over for a moment. Before he leans back and his arms slowly get back to what they were doing. And he nods. Very well. That can be done. As far as precisely how, well, we'll work that out upon your successful completion.
bring this shit's inventory?
Yep, that is your robe of totally not important to Idiot guy.
This achieved.
It's actually really gaudy. Not exactly your taste, but it pretty much screams like, I work with Idiot, so get out of my way.
By the way, I see you have taken notice of this fascinating bit of technology that I was recently able to manufacture. Would you like to have a look?
Sure.
So you need to say that, with a beat of his wings, Edok flies over the table and grasps you. Oops, not that far. In his arms. He then takes the sky above, flying high above at fast speed. Now, look below. This is a fruit of my efforts. And as you look down below, the chair looks to be the size of an ant from this height, but the strange floor almost appears to be even larger from up here, and now reveals many more scenes on its surface, like the area under the magical stairs you walked up earlier, but more focused. You see the bubbling top with your companions gathered by the entrance, and Wandering Wind taking your body before a bloodstained Moldover walks off upstairs. You see Rangrim hammering away at something in his forge, as was bound Teresa in the basement of the bubbling top. A number of displays also appear to show a handful of individuals that you do not recognize. Suffice to say, this sort of thing would be quite handy for a god, so it is easy to see that Idiok's grand expressions of gratitude are certainly not unwarranted. Mind you, such instances of observing the mortal plane can already be done with relative ease, but to be able to observe so many scenes at once is simply priceless. None of this would be possible without the aid of the chronicler. To say I'm grateful to her would be quite the understatement, but please, do keep that a little bit to yourself. We wouldn't want people to get the wrong idea.
I'll be back after something.
You'll be back after what?
He said he'll be right back.
Okay, buzzing.
Dorito. Cinnamon.
Those are Lady Doriorano and Cinephon, thank you very much.
How is Codex / Elton liking himself that far up in the air?
What?
Yeah, you're several hundred feet in the air.
This is a weird feeling. I'll say that much.
Whee!
Nevertheless, once you've seen your fill, you descend at a pretty comfortable pace until soon enough you're back on the ground on 2 feet and Edok's back in his chair. Well then, if there will be no further questions or requests, shall we conclude this little meeting?
I cannot think of anything presently.
Right. One more bit of information before you go. As far as precisely what will happen to you from here, I shall undo my aforementioned intervention and send you to a nearby location where your escort is waiting, and you may start right away. As for who will be accompanying you, first, Wandering Wind, Divine Champion of Doyorno, will be accompanying you for this little wager. As far as champions go, he is exceptionally powerful. With him in your corner, you'll have quite a formidable force. Next up you have Passion Creed, Divine Champion of Harmonia. Passion Creed is new to this champion business, but has shown herself to be quite talented. Then there's Harmonia herself, who will also be part of your escort. As per her agreement with the mediators, she's a valid candidate for this escort, as she, like Azimuth, reduces their power to be relative to those she travels with. However, next is a most unexpected participant. Kalbach Downflutter, Divine Champion of Skiaspidox. The goddess of the hunt has chosen to remain an observer pertaining to the matter of the chronicler until very recently, when she learned that the upper echelons of dragons present here in Diotethys aren't buying your dad's permanency, and plan to get involved independent of we higher beings. The scaly beasts always were too smart for their own good. They too would also prefer there to be no overseer, as it allows them more freedom without one. Anyway, Scalespidos has championed a dragon slayer, but not just any dragon slayer, the dragon slayer. A move that has more than a few of the more powerful of our world a little on edge. For a dragon slayer divine champion is a foe no dragon would ever wish to have to face willingly. Lastly, there is the odd duo of Kalia McEnroe, divine champion of Kefka. He was quick to pick up on the importance of an overseer and our need of one, much to many of our surprise. His champion is an incredibly skilled fighter, albeit in a style he isn't particularly used to. And there you have it, your team that will be aiding you in the foreseeable future. You will be meeting them all here shortly. And he leans over.
How many of these deities mentioned I read about?
Oh, you know all about them.
Yeah.
Although you, as he said, the goddess of the hunt, you're actually very surprised because ever since her leaving the Pantheon of the Land, she's been going out of her way to avoid pretty much anything to do with the Pantheon's business, just doing her own thing. So for her to suddenly step forward is very unexpected. Apparently, she is not pleased with the dragons right now. So as soon as she heard that they're stepping in, she's like,
He then leans far over the desk until his many arms are more at your level. And then reaches one long one towards you, as if expecting a handshake.
I gotta shake it.
make an X check.
No, not dead. Dex.
You step forward to reach for his hand, and you step too far and end up almost doing the splits and falling over. You're not used to having such short legs. It won't take too much getting used to it, but definitely a little different than you're used to.
As you grasp his hands, the owlish grin, wider than has ever been before, returns to his face. If you didn't know any better, you think you could see just teeth in the corner of his cheeks. Yeah, but it just has to be your eyes playing tricks on you. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, Codex Lirum. Or should I say, Elton Nilsson Highhill. Do take care. And next moment, your surroundings shift and distort. Before you find yourself in an unfamiliar bedroom, but with an all too familiar tabaxi leaning up against a wall in the corner. Upon noticing you, he gives a small nod.
I return it.
And
that is where we're
the
gonna
tome
pick
of
up.
The chronicler will begin.
We'll pick up from there. In the town of the chronicler.
Alright.
See you then.